Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the EduSet lecture. We have been talking a lot about media research through our EduSet lectures. Today we are going to talk about method of data analysis and interpretation, and for this, that is to get wider introspect into this topic, that is to get wider view into this topic, we have with us in our studios Dr. Devesh Kishore, a renowned academician in the field of journalism and mass communication. So let's welcome our guest, our expert, Dr. Devesh Kishore. So sir, my question is what method are we going to talk about today?
Today we will be discussing how statistics can help us in analyzing the data properly, so that we take care of the errors and we take care of the sampling problems, all of that. So basically our focus of today's presentation would be use of statistics, and we will basically understand what are the various terms which are used in statistics, which students or scholars must have knowledge of it, so that they can use various types of terminology in analyzing the data which they have already collected. So let us understand what is the meaning of statistics and what is the role of statistics. So statistics, we say it is a calculus of observation. That means that whatever observations you have collected, data you have collected, we have to calculate it. We have to reach to certain interpretation, and from interpretation we reach to certain conclusion. So therefore in communication research, which is done in a natural settings, the items measured are subject to variation. Every observation which you collect will have lot of variation. No respondent is same, no situation is same. Either they are differing in certain variables like age, education, social status, cultural value system. So there are several variables which are associated with the respondents from whom you are collecting the data. Now the problem is how to take care of these basically important variables when we are collecting the data. So therefore statistical principles have very wide scope of application. It helps us in analyzing the data systematically, scientifically, and taking care of significant errors. We must remember that whenever we are collecting data, either you have taken a sample, and from sample you have, from the respondents you are collecting the data, there may be certain errors. These errors may be due to sampling, these errors may be while the respondents are giving the answers, and there may be lot of variation. So how to segregate data, how to put them in a certain group or classification, so that we are able to analyze them properly. In coming series, we will be discussing various types of tests which have been standardized, like t-test, f-test, chi-square tests. So the various types of tests which have been evolved to take care of these problems while analyzing the data are very useful for the researcher, and researcher has to take care of basically these things. Now let us understand the statistics which we are using, what are its aims. First important aim is to study the population. What is population? Population is a total universe of the study from where the representative sample is drawn. Now population does not mean only population of human being. Population in terms of statistics, it can be individuals, it can be human beings, it can be family, it can be variables like height, wage, income, etc. That means the total number of respondents will be called population. If you select from them, then they will be called sample. Let us say the total population of the country 240 crores. Now that is a population, but you cannot study the total population Therefore, what you do? You take the sample. So, when you take the sample, you draw the sample, some error might creep into it. Sometime non-intentionally, intentionally bias may enter. So, that bias has to be taken care of. Number 2, aim of the statistics is to study the variation which the individuals have. As I said, no individuals are same. Every individual, a unit of the population, is varying in terms of characteristics. Somebody may have heights of different measurement, somebody may have hairs color different, somebody may have the ages are different. So, everybody, all the respondents which you take in your sample will be varying. Now, statistics says how to take care of these variables. There are two types of variables, independent and dependent variables. We will discuss a little later how dependent and independent variables are decided by the researcher for this study. Number 3, to study the methods of reducing the data. See, so much of data has come on the basis of your objectives, on the basis of your hypothesis. Now, this data has to be properly classified, coded, put into the groups, so that you can extract the desired information and also express in a summarized useful form. Otherwise, so much of the data, if you start analyzing all this data together, it will be a very tough job. Not only tough, but interpretation will be difficult. So, therefore, we must properly code it, put into the class, classify it, and then analyze it to get the desired information. So, statistics will help you how you should be able to do it, and that is what we are going to discuss today. Now, before we enter into the statistical tests which will help in doing this thing, there are terms which we call statistical terms. We must, important terms at least, we must remember. One term is called frequency. What is frequency? Frequency means in the population or sample, anything which is occurring over a particular period of time. For example, frequency in a sample, the number which is frequently happening. Let us say we are studying the families and we are trying to find out in each family how many children are there. Now, we will find, let us say there are 20 families, one family has 2 children, second family has 3 children, third family has only 1 children, fourth has none of the children, like this. Now, this when you are just plotting, I will explain you with an example. Now, let us see the example. I have taken a very small example of 5 families. Family A has 2 children, family B has 1 child, C has 2, D has 3, E has 2. Total number of families are 5 and the total number of children 10. Now, the problem is, what is the frequency? Either in terms of averages or in terms of the families which have common numbers of children. Now, here you will find that number 2 children is occurring many times in the table itself. For example, we find A family is having 2, C is having 2, E is having 2 children. So, what then we will say, the frequency of this series in terms of children is 2. Why? Because 2 is occurring number of times in the series itself. So, that is what is called frequency. Frequency is the number which occurs number of times in the series is called frequency, which is called highest frequency. Here also 2 is the highest frequency which will be considered, it has occurred at 3 times. So, this is the way how we locate frequency. Here I took the example of only 5, there can be 200 families, 300 families. Now, you have to work out what is the frequency, and that we will discuss later. How should we calculate in when we series is very big. Here I gave the example to understand what frequency means. Now, the second term, second situation could be frequency on interval basis. Earlier example was only one family, A family, B family, C family, D family, E family, only one family. Now, suppose we categorize them in different intervals, let us say 0 to 10 students, children, 0 to 10, maybe it may be 1 to 10, whatever interval you fix, this is up to you. It can be several variables can be taken into consideration. Let us take age, and then you say 1 to 10 year of age, how many students are there with the families? Then you find 6. Then 11 to 20, how many children are there? 16. 21 to 30, how many children are there? 3. Now, here what we have done? We have classified the families into groups. We make 3 groups to make the task easier, so that we are able to group the data into 3 groups basically. Now, here students number is 25, and we have what we have done, ages we have taken into consideration. So, the intervals are of 10, 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, the gap between each interval is 10. Now, which has the maximum number of scoring marks here? You see the first 0 to 10 is 6, 11 to 20 category is only 16, 21 to 30 category is 3. So, highest is 16. So, this is the highest frequency, and then we can say the frequency against each group which is the highest is taken into consideration. In the earlier example, please remember, there we had taken the number of families having 2 children, that was the number which was occurring more number of times, therefore 2 was taken. Here that interval is taken which has the highest frequency. So, 16 is the highest frequency. Of course, 6 is also frequency, 3 is also frequency, 16 is also frequency, but highest frequency is taken into consideration, and that is called frequency. Second, which is very popular with our research scholars and researchers, is the percentages. Percentage is also a skill term which is used, and many of us are using percentage. If we define percentage, it is a fraction or ratio with 100, understood as a denominator. Somebody was telling me during the talk that my is 200%. There is nothing like 200%. Percentage is always calculated with a ratio of 100, not more than 100. You may have more people, let us say you may have 300 people, but again 300 will be worked out only 100. So, a statistical term says that when you want to do it in percentage, please do it with 100 as a denominator. You cannot say that 110% people in my sample are highly educated. There is nothing 110, it is wrong. It should be only in 100. The total within the 100 should be broken. It is because the percentage is the ratio, that you must remember. You cannot go beyond the limit of the ratio, that is the 100. Let us say they take the example. A student gets 20 marks out of 100. What will be the percentage? Out of 200, 20 he gets the marks. Then 20 will be multiplied by 100 and divided by total number, that is 200. 20 to be multiplied by 100 divided by 200, that is total number, and then you get the result 10. That means 10%. So, 20 marks out of 200 are 10%. That is very easy to work out. There can be where total number of respondents are 131, and there again categories are there. That is, young are below 35, middle age are in the group of 36 to 45, and old age above 45. I think we should go back to the slide. There I have explained in the earlier slide that how these groups are having, that is below 35 years are old, and 33 respondents were of middle age between 36 to 45, and 51 respondents were of old age. So, how do we calculate now? Please show the slide. Now, you see the slide. Percentage system calculation, how it is made. For young, we find 47 members are there out of 131. So, then 47 is to be multiplied by 100 divided by 131, and the answer comes 35.88. So, we say 36%, because more than 0.5. For middle age, there are 33 persons out of 131, then 33 is multiplied by 100 and divided by 131. It becomes 25.1. So, let us say 25. For old age, we find there are 51 out of 131. So, therefore, 51 is to be multiplied by 100 and divided by 131. It becomes 38.9. So, we say 39%. Now, we prepare a table. In the first column we say age of respondents, second column we say young, third middle, and fourth old, and then we put that classification which we have decided. We said young below 35, middle 36 to 45, and old above 45, and then we write down respondents results, that is 36%, 25% and 39%. Now, percentages helped you in analyzing it. Now, you can say the respondents which I have selected in my sample, 36% are young, 25% are middle age, and 39% of old age. What has happened now? So much of data which you have collected, you have classified, grouped, coded, and then calculate the percentages by using 100 ratio, and then you work out the percentages. And when you work out the percentages in one line, you get the answer that this group of respondents are 36% are young, 25% are middle, and 39% are old. So, that was the two terms I have explained, frequency and I have explained the percentages. Now, let us see what are the measures of central tendency. The question is, what is central tendency? As the name indicates, central tendency, central means middle of your sample or population, middle number, center, what number? Suppose there are 81 persons in your sample. So, middle will be 40 or 41. Now, this is a central point of your population or of your sample. What is tendency? Tendency means from this central point all other numbers, how much they are differing either in positive side or on negative side. So, measure of central tendency is we measure the location of the middle center in the sample or the population, which is a single number, and then we try to find out from this central number what is the difference of other numbers in the population or in the sample, and that measures the central tendency. The tendency of the average, you have found out the central number, which we will call average, and this from this average each number how much is different. Why are we doing this? What is the use of working out the central tendency of the population or sample? Very interesting data. The example which is quoted, suppose there is a person whose head is in the refrigerator and his legs are under fire. If you take out the average will be 45 or 50. Then you will say, no, he is very comfortable, but he is not. His head is in the fridge and his legs are in the fire. Then how do you define this? You will say 50 is the average, but the tendency of this 50 is minus. If you go towards the minus, then it is 50, and if you go plus side, then again it is 50. Variation is very high. When variation is very high, it means there is an error in your sample, high error. You cannot believe that sample. So, somebody said the average temperature is 50, then you must ask second question, that what is the variation from this 50? How much is variation? Is variation is so high, it means your sample is wrong. It means your drawing the average is wrong. I think that the research scholars must understand, researchers must understand, variation is very important to know. If the variation is less and it goes on reducing, then it means your sample is a real one. Errors are very less, or there may not be any error. So, whenever you draw a sample, you must find out the average, and from average you must find out how much is the variation of the different numbers. If it is highly significant, too much of the variation, then the sample is drawn by you is not true sample. There are a lot of error which have entered into it. So, therefore, we find out the central tendency and we measure it. So, we say measures of central tendency. Please remember what I have discussed now. Central is the number of the sample or the population, whichever center number may be there. Maybe if you have 30 people, then 15 is the central number. Again, against 15, whatever is the frequency will be the average. Then you work out the tendency. From this average, take every population and go on finding out the difference. It may be minus, it may be plus. After you have found out the difference, then you will know, is this difference smooth, not varying too much. If it is varying too much, there is something wrong with my sample. If it is not varying too much, then my sample is good enough. Now, the next question is, what are the essentials of good average? Because you have to always work out an average for central tendency. I said the middle point. Yes, it is one method of finding the average. Let us understand, if average, a good average is not found out, what will the problems? So, first we must understand what is called good average. First characteristics are essential of good average is, it must be representative of the whole group. Whatever you sample you have drawn, it must represent it. Represent it means it must be similar in terms of variables. If I say this is the student who represents the class, it means that student has got almost same qualities, maybe in terms of age, maybe in terms of educational background, maybe in terms of knowledge. He represents. He is one of those students of the class which has similar characteristics. So, a good average is that which has the almost same characteristics of the population is the good average. But if that student which you have selected is very brilliant and who is rated as first, then that is not a good average. He is not average student. You have selected a most intelligent student. That cannot be a sample, that cannot represent. So, when we talk of average, then we take a representative of that particular class, so that all variables related to him could be expressed and understood. Number 2, average should be definite and it should be clearly ascertained, found out. It cannot go on varying. For example, when we say bureaucrat, now bureaucrat is a characteristic. It cannot be an average. So, the characteristics which are qualitative in nature are not the averages. Averages are in definite terms. So, you will have to work out averages whenever you are doing study definite numbers. Third, it must have stability of value. What does it mean, stability of value? Means it should not be affected by extreme values. As I gave you the earlier example, funny example, where the individual's head is in the refrigerator and legs are under fire. Why I say funny example? Because here variation from the average is so high, you can't interpret anything and work out. So, whatever average value you work out, it should have the stability, means it should have almost differences which are homogeneous in nature, not very much. Fourth characteristic is, whatever we work out, it helps us in mathematical analysis. If we have averages, then only we can work out and say, well, this is the way how we can compare the population. or we can compare the sample. That is what is very important. And it should be simple to calculate. It should not have very complicated method for calculating the average. So, these are the characteristics of the average which we have to keep in mind. Then we come, what are the importance of averages? Why do we take out the average? As I told you, the most important thing was averages are used to measure the central tendency. If you do not have average, how will you measure the central tendency? So, therefore, first and foremost importance of working out average is to know the central tendency, how the data is behaving in respect to average. That is what is very important. Second is the importance of average is that we can compare one population or one sample to another sample on the basis of the averages. We will say this sample of a student has average age of 15 years. Another sample of students has the average of age of 10 years. Now, you need not to give the full data, because you are giving the average of one sample and average of another sample. So, the averages can be compared and easily can be concluded instead of taking each data from both the sample or population and comparing it. That confuses the people. So, therefore, the another importance or advantage of average is easy comparison between the two population on certain characteristics, on certain variables, and to reach certain conclusion. The other thing advantage is that the statistical tests, which we will discuss later, can be easily used by taking the help of the averages. Otherwise, get entangled with the number of data which we have collected itself. So, these are some of the importances. I have just discussed the major importance of average which a researcher will get by using it. But there are certain limitations of average. Average can give you the characteristic of the group, but individually it cannot contribute. If you want individually, then you have to show the whole data. So, the limitation is that average expresses the group characteristics, and averages can be drawn and derived by different method. You might have heard of, like mode is one method, median is second method, arithmetic mean is another method, geometric harmonic mean, there are other methods. So, drawing the averages are in different ways, are different methodologies, but then you must understand about each method, the advantage of drawing average by mode, median, arithmetic mean, harmonic, geometric, whatever way. What are their limitations, advantages, disadvantages, and why are you using a particular method? Why are you using arithmetic mean method, or why are you using mode or median? Now, that has to be understood. A researcher must know which type of mean methodology, working out the mean, he is very capable of, or he is going to use it. So, therefore, the second important thing is the methodology by which he works out the mean, and then he has to draw the averages whatever method is using, please remember each method of working out the average might not give you the same result. Suppose you are using arithmetic mean and then you are comparing with mode, or you are comparing with median, you will find little difference. But of course, the difference will not be too much. It may be in points. If you draw through arithmetic mean, the average is come as 5, then in median it might come 5.5. So not more than 1 or 2 you will find the difference, but there will be difference because of the methodology, and therefore you have to decide the methodology, which methodology you are going to use. Most of the research scholars or researchers all over the world use arithmetic mean. Why arithmetic mean? Because arithmetic mean methodology takes into consideration each number of the population. We will see this or discuss this while using arithmetic mean methodology to find out the arithmetic mean. And therefore, arithmetic mean is supposed to be the best, reliable, objective method of drawing the average. That is what is happening. And maybe the last transparency or slide which I would like to show you, the classification of average. That is average of location, mode, median. 2 comes under average of location. By location you can find out in the series. Number 2, mathematical averages. Mathematical average is arithmetic average, geometric and harmonic. Third, other practical averages, moving averages, progressive averages. Now these are the averages which we will discuss in next presentation. Maybe how to find out average by location, that is mode and median. Next could be mathematical averages and other practical averages. What we must remember this classification, we must remember the advantages, limitations of averages, and also those terms, frequency and percentages.
Very well said, sir, because we have very less time and we have to wrap up this lecture today, but you have given a very deep insight how by using statistics we can interpret data and collect data. Thank you very much for being with us in this lecture. Thank you very much, sir.